or get out.
Good morning. Here is our word for today. A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops. Henry Adams. Have a good day, one and all.
What are you doing out here?
Reading.
Reading what? Reading, sir? On your feet, Bright. Where are you supposed to be?
Science, but Mr. Bolton said...
No hassles. You want to read? Read in the library.
But Mr. Bolton...
On the double. Or would you rather take a detention?
Hi.
Hey, Chris. What are you doing wandering around the halls?
Well, it's somewhat complicated. You see, I was sitting over there, and the coach came over. You see, we were studying distillation in science.
Whoa, I didn't ask for a history of the wheel. One thing at a time. Let me see your pass.
I don't have one. You see, I was in science, and Mr. Bolton
No
said...
pass? Chris, listen to me once and for all. What do you think I'm trying to get over in social studies?
The structure of society, but in science...
All right, hear me out. This is a society with certain rules. There are reasons for those rules. Without rules, we'd have disorder. Without order, we couldn't run the society, the school. Without school, you couldn't get an education. And without an education, you couldn't make it in the larger society. Now, is asking for a pass, like everyone else, too big a price to pay for getting an education?
You know, sometimes you're just as unfair as the feds.
The what?
The monitors. They never give you a chance to explain either.
The feds? That's one for the books. Okay, come on. Go to the office and get a pass before the feds grab you. You're in enough trouble already. And I'll still see you tonight after school.
Attention, please. I've been asked by the Dramatic Club to announce that the rehearsal of The Emperor's Clothes will be held in the girls' gym instead of the auditorium. And may I take this opportunity to remind all homeroom teachers that mid-year progress reports may be picked up at the administration desk at the close of the school day. Thank you.
Guidance Office, Newman speaking. What is it this time? Oh, boy. Okay, I'll be right there.
Excuse me.
Yes, Chris.
I'm obviously going to miss the bus again, and I thought...
Be my guest.
Thank you. Hi, Mom. I broke an all-time record. Would you believe 3 detentions in one day? I'm sorry, Mom. I just couldn't help it. No, please, I can handle it myself, please. Besides, this is report card day. That'll make up for it. No, the schoolyard will be okay. There won't be any kids there. I'll be fine. Those the report cards?
You know it.
Can I have mine now?
It's against the rules, and yours isn't ready yet.
I've already calculated all my grades anyhow. I'm not worrying.
But it's a new system, Chris. No grades till the holidays.
No grades?
Nope, it's a progress report. Now, would you excuse me? I'm very busy.
Can I help you?
Lord helps those who help themselves.
Excuse me, I gotta go.
Where are you going?
Homeroom before my desk gets vandalized.
Hello, Mrs. Bright. This is Mrs. Jordan from the school. I thought I'd call you to tell you that Chris is in real trouble this time. Yes, it's his progress report. And from what I hear, when he sees it, he'll be very upset. Well, it's just that if he was my child, I'd want to be prepared.
This is Mr. Meehan. In regard to the issuance of interim progress reports, please impress upon your pupils the importance of obtaining their parents' comments on the form submitted. Thank you.
May I have your attention, please? Will the following staff members please report to Mr. Meehan's office as soon as their homeroom duties are completed? Mr. Wadley, Mr. Bolton, Mrs. Santangelo, Miss Tendall, Mr. Sibley. Could be that's one of your problems, Chris. You've always got your nose stuck in some book.
Well, sometimes it doesn't matter so much. I mean, not having friends.
But you've got to make friends.
How?
Make them like you.
Can Donald come over to my house later?
I don't really know. I think he's got track practice or something.
That figures.
Miss Jordan, do you happen to...
Mr. Newman, I've been looking for you.
You've been looking for me. Listen, my friend, it's crisis time again.
Well, that's what I wanted to explain. If I could just explain once.
Cool it. Will you listen to me for a minute? Now, Chris, they're working on your progress report in there right now. They waited until the last possible minute. You had to go and lose control.
Then let's go in there and explain the contretemps.
Now, listen to me, Mr. Vocabulary. You wait here. I'll do the explaining.
But that's unconstitutional. Why?
That's why, Big Mouth. You make too many waves. Tell you what I'll do. I'll see if I can get you in there. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Well, I think we're about ready to proceed. Betty, as Chris's homeroom teacher, will you please take down a draft of this? Sam?
Well, just a suggestion. I think it might be a good idea if Chris were a part of this, and I'd like to bring him in here before anything is committed to paper.
I agree.
I think it is only fair.
You're setting a precedent. You do it for one, you'll have to do it for all of them.
Well, that's true.
I promised him I'd try. See, he values our relationship, and so do I, and I think this is one way to reinforce it.
Well, no problem, then. Just keep him off the soapbox.
On second thought, there may be a problem. Without going into the clinical details, Chris sees things, sees the world differently than other children. To a certain extent, he lives in a world of his own. Sometimes, in fact, and I'm sure that you've all had experiences one way or another in this area, sometimes Chris's way of dealing with the situation is to, well, tune out on reality. Now, you may call it daydreaming, you may call it inattention, you may call it forgetfulness, you may even call it fantasizing, but whatever you call it, we can't be sure always of the way Chris sees things. Or us. Or this. Okay, you're in. But now let's get one thing straight. Do you trust me? And you believe that I'm trying to help you? Okay, then just this one time, will you keep your mouth shut? This can be rough, Chris. I mean, they can crucify you, so don't help them. Just answer yes or no and pay the man his $2.
What does that mean?
Skip it and just let me do the talking, will you? And remember, if you have any questions, any comments, just pass me a note.
Boy, this is like something out of Alice in Wonderland.
See, that's what I mean. Think it, but don't say it. Chris, sometimes you do see things differently. So remember, what you think can't be held against you, but what you say can. Let's go.
Young man, take your seat.
Do you understand what this is all about?
Somewhat. Because I assaulted the coach?
Objection. Defendant is not required to incriminate himself.
I'll sustain that. This concerns your interim progress report, young man. Proceed, Mr. Bolton.
Now, we all know that this child has been a discipline problem.
Objection. Conclusion is unsupported by evidence. The record will show.
Sustained. Problem, young man, is that your teachers find it difficult to grade your performance because of your behavior. Accordingly, we will arrive at a sensible and proper report here for you to take home to your parents. Does that seem reasonable?
Provided I get a chance to explain things for a change.
Don't be insolent, young man.
Every time I try to explain my side of things, you call it insolence.
Before we go any further, may I suggest we hear the general charge. Whereas Christopher Bright, 8th grade, has over the first marking period been the center occasion cause of various and sundry disciplinary problems. And whereas said Christopher Bright has been disruptive, dissenting at every possible opportunity, accordingly occupying the valuable and limited time of his teachers to the detriment of their attention to curriculum and class. And whereas said Christopher Bright seems determined to chart upon turning the school upside down to his own detriment, now, therefore, it becomes incumbent upon this assemblage by the powers vested in it by the Board of Education to arrive at a just and significant communication concerning said Christopher Bright, suitable for inscription upon Form 227-W, report to parents, pupil progress for the perusal, signature, and return to Stone Junior High School. Is that clear, young man? Any questions?
Why don't we have the right to judge you and write reports about you?
Mr. Bolton, call your witnesses.
Sir, may I have a short conference with my client?
Objection. My colleague has had more conferences with that child than any other child in the school.
Overruled. Make it short.
Chris, are you all right?
Sure.
Okay, but remember now, I do all the talking.
I called the defendant's homeroom teacher and English teacher, Miss Tyndall. How would you describe this boy's behavior?
Well, in homeroom, always the last one in, mostly after the bell, and always the first one out, sometimes before the bell stops. I suppose the word is inappropriate, peculiar.
Miss Tyndall, have you ever asked Chris his reasons for his behavior?
Over and over again, and it's always some tale about fussing with the other children. He gets into more fusses.
Over and over again. And how many times have you consulted with me about these fusses?
Mr. Newman, I have 31 other children in my class, and...
With Mr. Meehan, then? How many times?
Well, if you expect me to go to the principal every time... Well, they're always such petty things.
Can happen right in front of her eyes, right in class, and it doesn't do any good to report it.
Christopher!
She'll never do a thing because she's scared for her job. Afraid they'll say she can't control her class. That's her problem.
Miss Tyndall, have you any idea why Chris is always the last one in, first one out?
I haven't the slightest idea.
Might it be because he is so harassed in the schoolyard before the bell that he cannot help but be the last one in? Might it be that he has to get to his locker first before his possessions are strewn about?
Mr. Newman, I honestly don't know, but I honestly believe that the child causes his own problems.
Thank you. Now, you are also Christopher's English teacher.
That is correct.
How would you describe his behavior in that class?
Well, first let me say that Christopher is a bright child. Why, his vocabulary alone, I mean, really. Of course, if he could spell half the words he uses. and punctuate, and capitalize, and paragraph properly, and write legibly. However, as far as behavior, if he would only pay attention like the other children do.
As the others do.
Now, Christopher knew that the assignment for last week was nonfiction. He saw me write it on the board. He heard me repeat it.
Fiction.
F? I never got an F in English in my life.
Christopher, I cannot pass you on a wrong assignment, however excellent it may be.
But I worked so hard. It isn't fair.
Is it fair for you to go on doing what you want to do while everybody
But it was
else...
such a great book.
Which didn't even happen to be on the reading list.
So what? A good book is a good book.
Christopher, I will not be spoken to like that by a child.
Well, then will you read it at least?
Christopher, I will see you here after school.
Now, I'm sure you'll agree that the language in this example of Christopher's creative writing is... Well, you can judge for yourself.
Young man, do you think such words belong in something to be read to other children?
Well, they've heard them on the school bus. I think you ought to know.
Oh, I can't take any more of this censored, screamed Pruneface, the bus driver. If you censored monsters don't stop your censored racket, so help me, censored, I'll stop the censored bus, and the whole censored bunch of you little censored can walk to the censored school. Thus began Pruneface's daily nightmare. Well, young man, you call this creative writing?
Write what you know. And when you do, they know people talk like that. They know people behave like that. Why do they say one thing and mean another?
And so Pruneface the bus driver abandoned the yellow juggernaut by the side of Valley Road, and with a final censored, you little censored, disappeared from Greenville, never to be seen again, unquote. Well, young man?
Miss Tandle, I understand that your class studied Hamlet this year.
Oh, yes, we had an entire unit on Shakespeare.
And did you require the pupils to memorize certain passages?
To be or not to be, and others.
Was this among them?
Why, yes.
I wonder if you'd mind reading it aloud, please.
There's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
I might further add that in the latest issue of a literary magazine subscribed to by the English department for the school library, there is advertised a full-size poster consisting entirely of the 4 letters of one of the words Chris used. Only $1.98.
Sustained.
I call Mr. Wadley, Social Sciences.
First, let me say that I like Chris. He's a real challenge. And there's no question as to his academic potential. He's an extremely bright child. However, in terms of behavior, he seems to have a compulsion, I guess you could call it, to take a position in opposition to the general trend of any given discussion, any given assignment. You say it's white, and Chris jumps up and says it's black. For example, this morning, the assignment being to bring in a relevant clipping or quotation for the bulletin board. Wait a minute, Chris. Where did you find that?
In a book.
Read it.
This country with its institutions belongs to the people who inhabit it. Whenever they shall grow weary of the existing government, they can exercise their constitutional right of amending it or their revolutionary right to overthrow it.
It's very interesting. Do you think we have the right to overthrow the government?
Well, I thought we could discuss it.
In junior high?
Well, it was only a...
Wait just a minute. What was your source? Who said that?
He did. First inaugural address. I thought everybody knew that.
We will discuss that after school.
I can't. I have to
If
get...
you want another detention for tomorrow, just keep it up. Now, frankly, I think a great many of Christopher's opinions and ideas aren't really his own. I feel he's influenced, perhaps by an overly permissive family situation, so that the acting out isn't really his own fault. I don't know what the rules are at home, but he certainly disregards them in the classroom.
Warren, I understand that you made Chris remove a button from his shirt?
That is correct.
What did the button say?
Well, nothing. It merely had the picture of a dove on it. I felt as a symbol of a particular political attitude or alignment, it had no place in the classroom.
What does that represent?
Are you kidding?
No. Why do you wear the flag?
Hey, you gotta be putting me on. I have the right.
No further questions?
May I? I have children waiting at home.
Yes, of course.
I'd like to say that Chris seems to be a gifted child. And like most such children, he has his own little ways. Now, Chris and I had a lot of problems from the start. But we talked about them, and we argued about them, and we fought about them. For example, the very first day, Chris announced firmly that he hated Spanish, that the language was illogical.
Why should a house be feminine? La casa. Why should a tree be masculine? El arbo. I'm only taking it because I have to.
Now, Chris, understand me. I know you can do excellent work if you want to. But if you wish, you may drop out of my class. I'll help you choose another subject. But I wish you would stay.
Why?
Because I think you need a friend in school. Don't you? You see, Chris, who you are as a person is more important to me than anything. Even the marks you get. Please stay in class. Just so you can have somebody to whom you're important as a person, not just a pupil.
Well, okay. Mucho gracias, señor.
Señora. Muchas gracias, señora, por favor.
Mucho gracias, señor.
Now, Chris is by no means at the top of his class, but he's more than holding his own. We have no problems. We understand each other.
Mrs. Santangelo, is it true that you have said that you don't care whether your pupils learn Spanish or not, as long as they learn what you call the courtesies of life?
I've been known to say something of the kind, yes.
May I ask what kind of preparation for life you consider that to be? For a child who must be prepared.
May I say that I do not consider childhood to be preparation for life. I think it is life itself.
May I ask, Mr. Meehan, will Mrs. Santangelo's contract be renewed for next semester?
I'm not permitted to give out that information at this time.
Can we get down to brass tacks? Now, I got a bunch of live ones out there waiting for basketball practice.
Well, I'd like to stick to the schedule in order, Coach. Just math and science left. Would you mind?
Short and sweet. Yes, not.
The boy's got a mind like a steel trap in my subjects, and I've got him for both, math and science. I mean to say that IQ-wise, he relates to my subjects in the top grouping. There's plenty of schoolhouse upstairs. But one big mouth. That's the main problem. Take this morning in math. My rule is that when you finish your assignment, you put your pencil down across your work and wait. But not Chris.
Hey, that's mine.
You can come back after class and get it.
How did you finish so fast?
It was easy. I factored up here and I combined terms down here.
You can't do it that way.
I checked, so it has to be right.
But you didn't follow process.
I know, but I figured.
I know, I can see what you've done, but you can't do it that way.
Why not?
Well, A, you haven't learned that procedure yet.
Yes, but I figured.
And B, there are two ways to do things in this class. My way and the wrong way.
But I got the right answer.
My way and the wrong way. Chris, I'm trying to teach process, method, not just answers. Process, method, structure, logic. Math is the gateway to logical thinking.
If process is supposed to be the way to get correct answers, and I get the correct answer with my process, why can't I use my process? Now, isn't that only logical?
Now let's take science. Today was the blow that killed Father.
Ed, what is your rule about pencils?
Pencils? Oh, every pupil must bring a sharpened pencil to class.
And if he doesn't?
He can't work on the day's unit.
Logical. What then?
He can make it up after school.
What does he learn from that?
Discipline, for one thing. Proper use of classroom time, for another.
Even if the pupil is always forgetting his pencil, or losing it, or having it vandalized by his fellow classmates?
How he gets along with his peers is your problem, and his, not mine.
Let's stop wasting time. You all keep making excuses for him because he's so smart. Well, I can't see it. As far as I'm concerned, that kid's playing with half a deck. And rules, he doesn't even recognize they exist. There isn't a kid in school who doesn't know the rules about smoking. But I took this from him right in the halls. Now I ask you.
Coach, I was getting to that. But first, we have to make allowances for Chris. If you really knew his IQ, if you had any conception of his previous psychological problems, both within the system and outside.
How can you be so certain of that?
You have your files. I have my sources. I know for a fact that Chris ranks in the top percentile of academic potential, well above the school norm and way above the national norm. That's why I started in the beginning to give him more leeway than the others. But it didn't take me long to realize that discipline was what he needed. And by golly, if nobody else was going to give it to him, I was. Because I was determined that he would be a credit to our school and a worthy product of our system. But Chris, we're only human, you know. Teaching isn't easy. And no one can run a classroom for one kid out of 33. We've got to have rules. We've got to have order. Now, let's go on from distillation to atomic particles.
But Mr. Bolton!
Please, Chris, no more of your interminable questions. I'm beginning to think they're just an excuse for launching on some irrelevant lecture.
But this is relevant. I thought we could do a distillation on this. A real experiment. We could measure the torsion of carcinogens and write it up for our parents. And for kids who are stupid enough to smoke. Now, if you don't call that relevant to science, what is?
Chris, I'm giving you just 5 seconds to close your mouth, get back in your seat, or leave the class. Chris? Chris! At that, Chris chose to leave the class.
That's not what you said. That's not what he said. He never said that. He's a liar.
Chris, control yourself. There's a right way and a wrong way.
Why didn't you tell him that? Why didn't you tell him all that? Why didn't you tell him the truth? You told me to sit down, shut up, or get out.
I'm sorry, fella. Why didn't you explain?
Why didn't you give me a chance to?
Okay. But is that any reason to belt me? Hey, you can't go around belting teachers. And your parents teach you respect. Would you think you got problems? Well, let me tell you. When you got over 200 kids in PT and every day, day after day, the same problem with the same kid. Come on, Bright, get the lead out. Hey, will you hold it down? Why don't you carry this stuff around so the other guys can't get at it?
I lose it.
'Cause you're always daydreaming, kiddo. Always got your nose stuck in some oddball book. You got 1 minute to get out on that floor, or you do less.
What am I supposed to learn from that?
What was that last crack?
Nothing.
All right. Forget the suit. Skivvies and socks.
"45 minutes elapse. That can be pretty rough.
Yeah, being in my underwear was worse.
The coach isn't a bad guy. Do you want me to talk to him?
No, I think the more you talk to them about me, the more they blame me for everything.
Chris, do you think that if the kids understood you better, that you'd get along better?
Maybe.
Well, has it ever occurred to you that you might try to get them to understand you better on their terms?
What do you mean?
Well, now, take, for example, the names they call you. Bookworm.
Creep. Mental. Retard.
All right, and what do? You hit back at them with names they have to look up. Neanderthal, troglodyte, sadist.
Saddest.
Always correcting, huh? Ah, see? Chris, I can take it, but you automatically get their backs up. You have to be so different all the time.
Well, aren't I?
So was I. Until one day I decided that I would not submit to their violence forever.
Did they push you around too?
With the worst kind of violence. The kind they throw at anybody who's different. Jew boy, kike, sheeny, Hebe, nigger, spade, dago, wop, spick, hunky, Polak, Jap, kraut, chink, mick, wasp, pig, cracker, fag, snob, spaz, bum. Names on the land.
You left one out. Luke.
True. Anyhow, I decided the next time anybody pushed me around, I'd answer back in the language they understood best. Pow.
You mean use violence?
As a guidance counselor and a psychologist, I cannot countenance fighting.
Well, then.
But man to man, I'm saying that you might gain a little respect for yourself on their terms if you didn't just stand there and take it.
What happened to you?
I got clobbered. But the kid that I belted, well, he didn't exactly become my best friend, but they stopped pushing me around.
I'm not afraid of getting hurt.
Chris, I know the insults to your personal dignity, but there isn't a damn thing I can do about it. I also know there comes a time when you must stand up and say, no more. Now, I know that nonviolence is your way, but it just isn't working, is it? Now, I'm not asking you to become a tiger, just to let them know that you won't be pushed around. Think about it, Chris. Think. And be ready, and be fast, and be first, and pow! Try thinking like they do for a change.
As they do.
What do you want, good grammar or good advice? The very next one who pushes you around, pow! It was my mistake, Coach. I take full responsibility for the incident. I was dead wrong.
Oh, no. For once, Doc, you were on the ball. Hey, Tiger, I didn't know you had it in you. But next time, come to me, and you and the other guy can put on the gloves. By the rules. What do you say?
Still violence. It's still wrong.
There you are, Doc. So much for all that gobbledygook about relating appropriately to a crisis situation within a peer group. And no way.
You're getting good.
You're too good. That's why they won't play with you.
Ah, who cares? They're always hacking around.
Then you have to hack around. Like now, I like learning chess and everything, but you have to be outside with the other kids. If you want to make friends with them, you have to be like them. And that goes for class, too. Instead of always jumping up and talking.
Well, they won't call on me when I put my hand up.
That's because you don't answer the questions. You give lectures.
You expect me to sit there and say, yes, ma'am, and no, sir, and may I go to the boys'
Those are the
room,
rules, and you think you're too smart to play by the rules. But if you were really smart, you'd sit in your seat and think your own thoughts and act well-adjusted and all that.
Why?
To get them on your side.
Why?
Because they have the power to hurt you or to help you, and I honestly think they're trying to help you. Anyhow, it's better to have them on your side.
Why?
Because the whole thing is nothing but a game, that's why. And you have to play by their rules.
I feel sorry for you. Mate in 3 more moves.
Now, Christopher, do you have anything to say before we prepare your progress report?
No, sir.
Very well, you may wait outside while we prepare it.
What did you tell Chris's teachers?
What?
You called a meeting on the first day of school. What did you tell them?
The truth? Chris is an exceptional child, intellectually gifted, but with a background of disturbance, serious behavior problems, a long history.
And on the basis of raw information from somewhere, you had him in elementary school. And on the basis of confidential information, you primed everybody here for trouble in junior high.
Look, the more we know about any kid, the better we can handle him.
Is a kid a thing to be handled?
Oh, you've got it all wrong. I'm on his side. We're all on his side.
Well, of course we are. And he's had a fair hearing. Now let's form a valid judgment in the light of the evidence.
Here you are. Have your parents sign that and respond, will you?
I will.
Got a ride?
Uh-huh. My mom's coming.
Good. Listen, if, well, tell them I'll be here tomorrow, you know, if they want to phone me.
Okay.
You can't do that.
Why not? It's got my name on it.
Study habits,
Needs improvement.
respect for others,
Needs improvement.
participation in group,
Needs improvement.
self-discipline,
Needs improvement.
uses classroom time to advantage.
Needs improvement.
Christopher continues to make his own problems and to make things more difficult for himself. He's been frequently disruptive, often disobedient, and his constant dissent in many social situations contributes to the difficulties noted above.
kid can write circles around both of us. Do you realize how much he knows about himself? How well he really knows himself?
More than a child should know. You're proud. And he's shattered.
You're proud, too?
Where does he get these books?
I don't know. Probably John's or David. Hey, I've been looking for that one.
Oh.
Oh, come on, honey. Come on now. Come on.
I'm sorry. I didn't know there were any tears left. Let's move. Let's go someplace else. Why do we need this monstrous house? The big boys are gone. Let's just move.
Take ourselves along wherever we go?
Well, then let's send him to another school.
We tried that.
Someplace where the kids and the teachers won't laugh at him when he says he's going to be a doctor. Where they'll let him move at his own pace and not get bored. Someplace where he can breathe. Someplace special.
Honey, they all ought to be special. But educational cotton batting isn't the answer. He's got to make it in the world. And Stone Junior High is the real world. I mean, he's got to learn to take the knocks. I mean, look, we wanted our kids to be real individuals, didn't we? Well, I think we've done pretty damn well. I call this Chris's Declaration of Independence. It's his real diploma.
We've still got to answer that report.
Well, I don't know. If the system's got a right to judge him, he's got a right to judge the system.
Does it ever occur to you that the system may be right sometimes?
Sure, the system right or wrong. If right to be upheld, if wrong to be told off.
By a child.
Well, it's the truth as he sees it.
The system has got to be right some of the time.
Well, sure it is. I never said it wasn't.
You don't know the half of it. You're not here all day waiting for the phone to ring with some new... You don't know what it's like every day, a tightrope walk, a mined road.
I know, honey, I know.
You don't know what it's like waiting for the school bus. Is it going to be hi, Mom? Or is it going to be tears, frustration, misunderstanding? I've beaten a path to the principal's office all my life. But the system has got to be right part of the time. He does make things hard for himself.
And who taught him?
And he is different. And we made him.
So he's different. Aren't we? Would you have married me? Would I have married you if we hadn't both heard a different drum? How could our kids march to anything but a different sort of beat growing up in this house? I mean, what can you expect from a kid whose mother pickets supermarkets?
Whose father fights City Hall. And sometimes wins.
Do either of us ever quit?
Quit what?
Quit walking indoors without knocking?
It's my room.
I'm sorry.
Hey, did you read it?
Yeah, I did. It's quite a manifesto.
Well, don't you like it?
Well, spelling F, punctuation F, capitalization D minus.
Handwriting C.
Content A plus. Final grade 100%. That's really something, Chris. So are you. As for what you wrote,
It's very beautiful and very mature. But your dad and I aren't so sure it's the right thing to send in.
It's the truth.
yeah, I'm afraid it is.
The question is, do they want to hear it?
And will they listen?
I wonder whether it will do you more harm than good.
But it's the truth.
Sure it is. As you see it. Chris, You know who you are, and that's beautiful. And your mom and I know who you are, and what anybody else thinks can't really hurt you. But your mom and I have to think in terms of cause and effect. As parents, we have to consider the outcome of what you do.
And we were supposed to respond to that report, not you. Now, Dad and I might have said somewhat the same thing.
Well, then?
But in a different way. You see, you haven't really answered their comments. What you've done is hand them back a report card on the whole works. Your school, your teachers, your classmates, the whole system, in fact.
I guess I did.
Well, then?
Well, what?
To send or not to send? I guess that's the question.
Is it up to me?
Well, I think that anybody who's man enough to form a judgment like this on himself and his society is man enough to decide what's going to be done with it. And the school is the society that you have to live in, Chris.
And things are bad enough already without making them worse.
Are you afraid of what they'll do to me?
They're only human, Chris.
But so am I. Whatever happens, I'm not sorry. If it hadn't been for all this, maybe I'd never have had to figure out where I stood.
To send or not to send, that's the question.
I don't think so. I think the question is, am I going to do what you've always told us to do? What they did. When you talk to my brothers about the war, didn't you say that...
Yeah, I know. If you want to volunteer for the Marines, I'll honor you and I'll respect you. If you want to go CO, go to jail, go to Canada, I'll honor you and I'll respect you. Whatever you do, I'll back you all the way.
But be sure you do what you have to do. Or now, would you rather me to think one thing and say another, just to play it safe?
Well, there you have it.
Tell you what, I'll consent to a compromise. Why don't we let Mr. Newman see it first? We trust him.
Okay, all right. We'll drop it by his office on my way to work tomorrow morning. How's that?
Okay.
Good. Say, lady, do we maybe have time for a game before dinner?
Did you set the table?
Certainly.
All right. If it won't take too long.
It won't.
Hey there, let's have a little respect around here, you. Read it to him, Chris. Come on now, do your thing.
I find that you have been too negative about my progress as expressed in your comments. I find that the I's in learning skills and habits are correct, but I'm inclined to disagree about the I's in respect for others. I also think that I made meaningful contributions, but that I do have to improve in participation. Your note suggests that I am a rude boy and out of whack. Well, as to being out of whack, I am because I think differently. But as to being rude, I feel that you were somewhat mistaken. You see, I am a loner and should learn to participate. But I loathe being in a group because they have a tendency to crowd me out as I disagree on things in a way which seems offensive to them. So I've gotten checks on self-discipline, respect for others, and in participation. Now I am being absolutely truthful, I guess. The only way I can improve is to agree to everything, but I'm not like that because I have the nerve to tell a person that he's wrong. I think you have been short-sighted about me, making it hard for myself. I'm not the equal to anyone. I'm inferior to some people, and I'm superior to some. But here, everything is a jigsaw puzzle, and everything that doesn't fit in is socially excluded, like the untouchables of India.
Good morning. Our words for this day were written by Robert Browning, who said, "A man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for?" Have a good day, one and all.
Well, what do you think?
Well, I think that Chris had better get going or he'll be late for homeroom. Chris, what do you really want to get out of school?
Well, if I could just learn what I'd like to learn, as well as what I have to. No, if I could just be treated like a person, instead of like a kickball or a product.
Good enough. Hit the road. You have been short-sighted about me.
Well, I think what he's trying to say is, look at me. See me for who I really am. Judge me for what I am, not what you think I should be.
And this is supposed to correct somebody's vision? Yeah, I think I'd better try to think of something else. Maybe talk to them one at a time, tone it down.
What's the matter? Can't they take it as well as dish it out?
From a kid who's never been taught that children should be seen and not heard? From a kid who at 12 knows more about life and himself than we may ever know at 50 or ever? No, this'll only get their backs up.
Okay.
Man to man. Get him out of the system before it chews him up.
Where? Where am I supposed to find a school? Even if we could afford it?
I don't know. Sometimes I think I ought to start one myself.
All right, what's preventing you?
Chris and others like him. On every ship, there's got to be a lifeboat.
Strength to your oars, my friend. But after school, what? Change the world?
Sorry, I forgot.
Chris, walk. Don't run.
But I've got a long way to go. What's the matter, Dad?
Oh, nothing. Your mother and I'll just forget the whole thing. We'll write up some respectful, courteous balderdash and we'll mail it in. I just wouldn't have you hurt for anything. Not even for our pride in you. But as for your manifesto,
is it always going to be like this?
Yep.
Dad, sometimes I'm scared stiff.
Aren't we all, Chris? Aren't we all? One way or another, somebody's going to always tell you to sit down, shut up, or get out.
What shall I do?
What you have to do.
Sit down.
I will stand up to you.
Shut up.
I will speak out.
Or get out.
I will not be driven out. I will accept your science and your math and your history and your phys ed and your English lit, but I will live my life my way. I would rather lose on my own terms than win on yours, like all the others who were different. I bet they were scared, too.
Sit Down, Shut Up, or Get Out was produced by the National Broadcasting Company in association with the National Council of Churches.